Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Yoder, and this is the Joshua Yoder Show. And today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite things to talk about, and that's baseball. And my guest today knows plenty of that. He has been a successful player, and is also now a successful coach. He is the current head coach for Mount Union Baseball. His name is Tim Hicks. Coach Hicks, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
So yeah, and like I said earlier, we have like I said, I'm a big fan of baseball, and one of the reasons why I brought you on here, and it's basically my first question is, what got you into the game of baseball?
I'd say I started playing early. I used to play in my backyard, with my brother, play wiffle ball, and I always liked it. And I started playing, when I was 8, minor league, and just worked my way up through, and little league, teener league, and then into high school, and played a little bit in college. So I always loved the game, just the competitiveness of it.
Ah, hey, nothing wrong with that. I love me the competitiveness of baseball as well. And my next question is, when you first got into Mount Union High School, you became a player to arguably one of the most influential coaches really in the state of Pennsylvania, Nick Imperioli. What was your first impressions of Nick when you first got to Mount Union?
Well, first of all, when you played baseball in Mount Union, probably from the time that you were in, your 11, 12-year-old, your little league, and definitely in teener league, everybody knew who Nick Imperoli was at the high school level. And, it was just something that, by the time you were, ready to try out for the team in ninth grade, everyone, it was just an honor to make the team back then. And just to be able to put those, the blue and gold, to wear that Mount Union hat, it was just special. And, to be able to play for a guy like Nick was something everybody that played, just wanted to do. First impressions of him, you just knew that everything, like, he demanded fundamentals, excellence. And, he just, every day, you just continue to outwork everybody and just try to get better.
Absolutely. And you went on to win some championships and a lot of hardware really from during your time in high school. So by the time you had graduated high school, what was those years like for you playing under Nick and playing for Mount Union?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the goals back then, whenever you first got in the program, we always talked about, it's actually the same things we talk about now, is to get to the district finals, try to win a district final, and then to try to punch your way into the state playoffs. That's the ultimate goal. If you get in, you got a chance. So, our freshman year, we ended up winning the states. I mean, I was a reserve. I didn't play. But obviously just being on the team and, being a part of that in practice. I mean, we felt like we made those guys better. And as we went up through, we went to the state finals in my sophomore year in '96. We ended up losing in the finals, but and then '97 again we won a district championship. We lost in the state quarterfinals, I believe it was. And then my senior year, we lost in the state semifinals after winning the district title. So lots of long seasons and memorable seasons, and just it was just a great experience. Knowing how competitive we were every year.
Yeah, what like you said, you had so many memories. Was there any one particular moment during your time there that stood out?
I would say probably, obviously winning it in '95. Winning a state championship is always something you remember. But my senior year was definitely special. I remember that in the district finals, we were struggling. I think we were playing Claysburg, and we were losing. We had to come back and beat them. And I remembered I had I had a double down the right field line that I think it tied the game. And I remember that was something that will always stick out with me. And then even in the first round of the playoffs, we played a team, Canavan Catholic, I believe, out around Pittsburgh, and we had a left-handed pitcher by the name of Adam Williams. And like, we were behind and he come in, bases loaded, nobody out. He struck out the side, and then the bottom of the inning, he comes in and he hits a home run over the scoreboard up at Vets Field in Altoona, that won the game. There are two things that always stick out to me. Just, your senior year, just to keep playing, to give yourself another shot, and how close we were to winning another one, but it wasn't meant to be.
No, that happens. That's all part of baseball, really.
Yes.
But I will say, you talk about the tradition and being so happy to be a part of Mount Union baseball. Well, what was it like knowing that after you were graduating high school? What was it like having to leave that program?
It was definitely tough, in baseball. I mean, we pretty much played me and a lot of my friends I grew up with, we had played from the time that we were 9 up until, we played all-stars up until, our senior year, well into June, July. Um, Basically my summers, there was we didn't go to the beach for vacations. We went to the ball field, our parents sacrificed a lot of time, and just knowing it was over was really tough. That that was the last time you were going to do that, and you know what I mean. But I wouldn't trade it. It was a great experience, and to keep playing all summer long. And it was tough. It was tough when we were done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, especially with like from all the years that I've been hanging around Mount Union watching you guys play, it definitely seems like baseball is a massive deal around there in that town.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the kids just, I mean, they keep playing, and usually until the end of July for sure. They're still, a lot of those guys are still playing all stars, travel ball. Obviously it's the landscapes change a little bit with, the incorporation of travel ball and, its popularity. But, our kids, they still, most of them play all summer long, and they love it.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. And now, Coach, you had said you had mentioned you had played in college. Where did you go play in college, and how was that experience like?
I played at Penn State Altoona. When I played, they were just getting started at the NCAA level, so it was tough. I mean, it was a little bit scattered, like practices and stuff like that. But coming from Mount, where we lived, we ate and breathed baseball all the time. It wasn't quite the same for me. I enjoyed it, but it was definitely not the same. So I only played for like my first year, and then decided to not do it anymore, and I focused more on my studies. But it was still a good experience to say that you played in college.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. Oh, but I will say, was coaching something that was always on your mind when it came to baseball?
Now, I always knew I wanted to coach. And when I first got hired, Nick was still coaching when I got hired as a teacher at Mount Union. So, and he had an assistant. So I really, couldn't do anything with that. And to be honest with you, coaching with Nick, it was, I just played for him 4 years before that. So it's intimidating, to coach with basically a legend. So I gravitated more toward basketball because there were some openings. So I ended up coaching basketball at Mount Union for about 7 years before baseball. I always, thought about it, and then whenever the chance came to get onto the baseball staff, my wife's actually the one who said, she goes, you love baseball, she goes, and because I like baseball too, so she goes, I think it's something you should consider. So she's the one that kind of pushed me, over into that, to the coaching side of baseball. So always wanted to do it, but she was the one that really pushed me that final step.
And what was it like to coach under Nick?
Like I said, playing for Nick and knowing how intense he was, and anyone who played for him can. There's all kind of stories out there, but it was definitely intimidating. And I remember that, I knew that whoever was the assistant coach, you coached third base, and and you had to make a lot of big decisions, and you just didn't want to mess up. You definitely didn't want to feel. You didn't want to feel that wrath of Nick if you did something that he didn't agree with. So it was definitely intimidating. But after those first couple years, and then the second, third, fourth year, man, we really got along well, and I learned so much. And he took me under his wing, and he really showed me all the little things that he did, that people didn't see, that really made the program what it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how long were you an assistant coach under Nick?
I started in 2013, and it was 2016, so 4 years.
And excuse me, during the time period, what would you say is your most memorable like moment with Nick that you cherish forever?
Uh, well, I'll tell you the probably the one that sticks out more than anything is the very first year. We lost in the district finals. Um, and then we ended up winning our first round state game. So we were in the state quarterfinals, and we were playing a team from out in Pittsburgh, Beaver. They had a great pitcher. We had a really great pitcher too, Cole Boozle. He's a local guy, and it was just a pitcher's game. The whole 0-0. They got a run across. It was 1-0. It was in the top of the seventh inning, and we had there was 2 outs. We had a guy at second and a guy out for our team. He gets a base hit to center field. I'm coaching third base, and it's like, you got to take a shot. So I sent him home, and the guy from Beaver from center field, he makes a 1-hop throw to the catcher right on the money. Our guy gets tug out right at the plate. We lose 1-0. And I'm like, oh, I just lost. I just sent a guy. We lost in the state playoffs to be eliminated. And I was like, oh, and Nick come over to me, and he said, Tim, he was like, nothing you could have done. He's like, you did the right thing. He said, you had to send him. He's like, and it's baseball. That right there, that sticks out to me is, like just having him in your corner, backing up that you did the right thing. And, sometimes you make decisions and they're, they don't go your way, or someone makes a great play.
Yeah, and being an assistant under Nick Imperioli, that goes a long way. And obviously his time would eventually come to an end. What was that like for you when he announced, like, I'm going to have to step down as head coach?
Yeah, well, he had talked to me. We were doing some off-season workouts, and he had talked to me about it. He goes, I don't know, physically if I'm able to do this or if I want to do it any longer. He's like, so he's like, and he wanted to know if I was interested, in taking over as the head coach, and I told him I was, and I know it was really tough for him because, doing it for all those years, and you get to make all the decisions. So, yeah, like I said, he got in touch with me, and he said, hey, he's like, I would love for you to have it. You know what I mean? You're Mount Union, you played here, you coached here, and I think it'll be good. So just having that vote of confidence was great.
Well, that actually leads into my next question too. Like, what was your reaction that he was like, I mean, obviously for as long as and successful as he was, he obviously had the right to make the choice of his successor. How did that make you feel that he felt confident in you to continue the program?
Oh, it's just knowing that he trusted me with the program, because the everyone, I guess, joked about it, in town that that nickel, he'll die on the ball field. He'll never retire. He'll never give it up. So, it was shocking whenever, like that he was going to, to resign as the head coach, but knowing that he was trusting me with the program was definitely special. And also at the same time, it's pretty terrifying because, they always say one of the hardest things in coaching is when you got to follow a legend. You know what I mean? Because no matter what you do, if you win, you're supposed to win. And if you don't win, then, it's like, well, Nick would have done it this way. Nick would have done that. So it was definitely terrifying, but, from the personal side of our relationship with him, it was awesome knowing that he had my back and that he wanted me to have the program.
Yeah, and to give some of the viewers here like context of what he's talking about, Nick has had multiple state championships, multiple state playoffs appearances. He's been numerous district titles and over 700 wins. So yeah, that's quite a resume to try to follow.
Yeah, and people would say that to me. They're like, are you sure you want to do that? And I was like, well, somebody has to do it. So, and I was confident in everything that we've talked about, and what I had learned and what I knew from baseball, and I felt that we were in a good place. And the one thing that you'll hear a lot of coaches will, whenever they decide to retire from coaching, they have that one group that's coming through that that they're a real stacked group, and they stay with them until the end. And then like the next group might not be as talented. So it's like, well, that's the year I want to go. I'll be honest, when Nick left, he left with a group of, we had some amazing ball players that were real young. he left me with a very talented, like stacked team. So he could have definitely stayed and we had some really great ball players that he could have stayed for, but he gave those players to me, and just another thing that he did that was just amazing as a coach.
Yeah, and what was it like going into a Mount Union baseball practice for the first time as the head coach?
Definitely. It was definitely, I was nervous because, I had been there for 4 years where, basically when Nick had practice, you did it his way, and he did all the talking. So knowing that I was going to have to be that guy, that I was going to have to start it from day one, it was tough, but we made it through. And it probably took a month or so, but the players, they looked at me as the head coach, and we got through that. But it was that first year, those first couple of weeks were definitely tough.
Well, and not to mention, Nick still occasionally showed up to help you, so it probably gave you some confidence to be like head coach, knowing that hey, Nick was there and he has your approval, his approval of you.
So the first year, it was a little awkward, I'll be honest, because we were kind of figured out, like, because he wanted the team to, hey, he's the head coach, you got to listen to him, don't come to me. So he started to come to practices the first year. He would come down to practice, and he would help out and do some things, and he kind of stayed in the background, but he wouldn't come to any games at first. But then we talked in the off season. I think it was in the fall after that first year, and I said, Nick, why don't you start coming to the games? It's like, come to the games. It's like, and it's like, the one thing he loved pitching and catching. That was the one thing he absolutely loved to coach. I was like, why don't you work with the pitchers and catchers? It's like, why don't you call pitches in games? He loved calling pitches and trying to outthink batters and stuff. But and he was like, are you sure? And so after that second year, he started coming to the games, and working with the pitchers and catchers. And from there, it just meshed really well. And if he ever thought that I was doing something wrong, or he would do something a different way, never expressed it, never said it to me, never said, Tim, I think you should do this. I would do it this way. He never said that. He let me on my own, and he let me make decisions, and even if they weren't what he would have done.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I've always wanted to ask you, Coach. For all the years I've known you and covered the team, has there ever been a moment where you're like practicing or at a game, and like you're kind of talking to the kids, and you like say something, they would all like immediately like turn to Nick and see like, okay, is this something you would have done? Like, that kind of thing.
I don't know if they would have said that like right. Like, is this something you would have done? But there were definitely times at the beginning, because those first couple of years, several of those players had played for him. You know what I mean? Like, he was the head coach when they were still there. So I think there were times that they would go over and they would ask him for advice, or they would ask him to help him out or something like that. They would probably gravitate toward him a little bit more. I mean, and it's understandable. I mean, the guy, you got 767 wins. You're a legend. Yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't you ask him for advice? I mean, he knows what he's talking about. So that never hurt my feelings, though, because I always felt that our whole coaching staff, we've always been in it together. If one of our coaches can help a kid better, then if they can relate to that kid a little better, if it makes the program better, why not?
Yeah, and speaking of making the program better, when you became the head coach, obviously you wanted to try to have somewhat of a resume like what Nick was doing, and you had your chance when you finally became a state championship coach. What was that season like for you?
That season, it was just it was amazing, because that was the third year I had been there. We knew we had a good team. We knew we had some good pitching, and as the year went along, we kept feeling like, okay, we have a good team. We have the pitching we need to do this. If we get some breaks, things go our way. And when we got to the playoffs, things just started to really click, and I felt our guys started to play together. They all were confident, and just winning it. I mean, what better feeling is there, to win a state championship? That's as high as you can go in Pennsylvania high school sports to win the state championship. So just a great feeling.
Well, yeah, I could definitely sense there was something special about that team when I was covering it that year. I mean, what I always felt about that team was, how do I put this? Like, you guys, there was a feeling that you guys were never out of it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. You guys always seem like, even when you're down, you're like, no one panic, we're fine. And then you guys would come back and win.
Yeah. I mean, I felt that year, you have to have two solid pitchers to win it, to get through the state playoff part of it. And, we had Dylan Gearhart, was, phenomenal pitcher. We could count on him, we'd counted on him for 4 years. So we knew we were good there. Guy by the name of Seth Smith, he was the one that, he had really good stuff. We knew he had great stuff. But his senior year, he found that mentally he was able to throw the pitches he needed to in the big games, and just did an outstanding job. Ended up winning. He was the pitcher in the state championship game. That team, we had a kid playing right field, Quentin Foltz. He's another one that just he did what he had to for the team. He had played infield a lot as growing up, and he went to the outfield. He played the outfield when he came to high school. He sacrificed for the team. Just so many guys on that team that just, and they relied on each other. They never felt they were out of it, like you said. Kobe Hand came through big in those games. He had some great hits coming, in the playoffs to help us out. It's nice to have a 6'4" first baseman. Just overall, just some outstanding. I mean, I feel bad I'm not mentioning all the guys, but I just felt like they played for each other and they never felt like they were out of it.
And what was that like? Because you got to play for the at the Spike Stadium when you guys won the state title, if I remember correctly. And that day itself was kind of weird, because didn't you guys have a massive rain delay, and then you had to play later in the day or something like that?
What we did, it's a funny story about that, is that in the district finals, the original plan was we were supposed to play a night game at the Curve Stadium for the district finals. Well, because of graduation or baccalaureate or class, some kind of senior thing, we played early, and the players were bummed because they're like, oh, we wanted to play a night game. We wanted to play a night game. So anyway, as the playoffs went along, we made it to the state finals, and we were supposed to play the second game. Was supposed to start I don't know, it was 2:30 or 3 o'clock or something like that. I can't remember back then. But like I said, there was some rain came through, and we ended up in a massive rain delay. They covered the field. We were down in the batting cages. We spent 2.5 hours. Nothing's more fun than hanging out with a bunch of teenage boys for 2.5 hours with nothing to do under the stadium. But we ended up not playing until 7 o'clock at night. So the guys got to play their night game in the state finals, and it all worked out.
Yeah, and you talk about how Nick had so much confidence in you and taking over the program for him. When that final out happened and you secured the state title, what was that like for you, knowing that, hey, this guy, after all that experience and years he's coached, he picked you, and you were able to prove him right with that win?
Yeah, it was, another memory about that game is, after we got that final out, all players go out and, they all celebrate together. And, the coaches, we walk out and, we just, we're shaking hands and, we're hugging each other. And I'll never forget that, Nick looked at me and he shook my hand and he put his arm around me. He's like, Tim, he's like, you did it, man. He's like, you got a state championship. He's like, no better feeling in the world. So another real special moment we shared together. And, we did it together.
No, that's awesome to hear. And I kind of hate to turn this into a Debbie Downer moment here, but unfortunately we lost Coach Imperioli this year. And what exactly was it? Something that you're aware of, that he had health problems?
We had known, and I had known that, that he had, he was in and out of the hospital. He was having some difficulty, but I never knew it was quite that bad. And then, I got a message that he was not good and he had passed away. And it was just just heartbreaking. A guy that, you know, you basically thought he was invincible. You know, I mean, when you were growing up and you played for him, and you know, even when he was coaching, I mean, even as he was as a volunteer helper when I was the head coach, he was out there. He was always down there trying to help with the field. You know, raking, doing whatever. It was hard to learn that, you know, that just to see it, to hear about that. Yeah, just a real tough moment.
But I will say though, you know, someone made an impact when so many people reached out or went to go, you know, see his like viewing and funeral.
Yeah.
What's your probably like? How do you think Nick Imperioli should be remembered?
Oh, I mean, I think he's just a guy that absolutely, he loved baseball. He loved the town of Mount Union, and how many people he affected. And, you know, he put Mount Union on the map, you know, in baseball. But the other thing I think he should be remembered is education. Education was so important to him, you know, as a teacher. And I think that, you know, he would say that, you know, whatever you do, make sure that you get a good education, because that's your way out. You know what I mean? If you have a good education, you can do a lot of things. So make sure that you get that education. Just very important. Like, he loved Mount Union, and he loved our guys, and he loved the relationships he formed.
Yeah, for me personally, of all the years that I've been covering, he's probably one of my favorite interviews. And if anyone that knows Nick would pretty much guess why that is. But but yeah, he always came across to me as a guy that was, you know, no nonsense, but regardless of what you think, he was always there for the kids, no matter what.
Oh, 100%. You know, and he just had a way of, like, whenever he would speak, like, you just gravitate. You had no choice but to gravitate toward him. Whenever he would, he was a great storyteller. However he told a story, whatever story he was telling, no matter what, he was able to draw you in, and it just made it exciting. And man, you just wanted to hear more and more. And he never lost that ability to do that. And just definitely missed that part. I missed all the stories. You know, just a fantastic storyteller, and so many memories.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of wanted to also ask what he's done. And another thing too that people need to realize, like the impact he made. Mount Union is a pretty small town. For him to do what he did in a town like Mount Union is incredible. And I kind of wanted to ask you, has there been stuff talked about, you know, to honor him at Mount Union?
I mean, he's already. I mean, I know he's already in the distinguished alumni in the alumni association. So in the school, I really haven't heard of anything else right now. Definitely, whenever you see the baseball field, everyone knows that that's the field that Nick built. If you're from Mount Union, you know that that's the field that Nick built. So, be nice to be able to do some things like that. But I don't know right now if there's anything in the works.
Well, I mean, hopefully maybe something will come up in the near future, because if anyone deserves to be remembered, it's Nick.
No, definitely.
Now, my next question with that, actually, speaking of honoring Nick, just recently you guys did a Mount Union alumni game. Tell me a little bit about that. How did that come about?
Well, so my oldest daughter, she is a senior this year. She's going to be a senior this school year. So she's a champ captain. So for those that don't know much about it, we have a program up here. It's called Champ. It's the 4 area schools in Huntington County raise money. It's a nonprofit. And so anyway, and they have a little competition, which school can raise the most money. So they've been kicking around fundraiser ideas. Like, they have bake sales, car washes, you know, a lot of different things. And back in I don't know if it was the winter or if it was early spring, my wife gave her the idea. She goes, you know, you should talk to your dad about doing an alumni baseball game. And they all thought it was a great idea. And I was like, this is during the season. I was like, I got so much going on. I don't know if I can organize all this. So after a few weeks, I gave in and I said, yeah, I said, I'll throw it out there. And I was like, I was worried. I was like, if we do this, are we gonna have enough guys to play? You know, is it all gonna work out? Like, what's gonna happen? But So I threw it out there. We decided we got a date, and I threw out a message on our baseball Facebook page, and I had a lot of responses right away. It's like, yeah, I'd be interested in playing, and I felt like we had enough guys to do it, and it kind of just went from there. That it went from this idea that they threw out and it all came together. It's a really hot day, but that it was very successful. So I'm glad that they pushed me to do it, and I think we'll try to do it again.
Yeah, it definitely was fun. I remember being there, and yes, it was indeed a very hot day. Hey, but what again? Talking about like an impact on people's lives, the vast majority of people that were playing there all played under Nick.
Yes, so everybody that was there had played in Mount Union for Nick, with the exception of the younger guys that like were on my that played for me. But most of the older guys there, actually all the older guys had played for Nick. So it was great to see them come back, and we were in the dugout there before the game or in between. We definitely, everyone had stories. Everybody has stories about high school baseball, playing for Mount Union, Nick doing this, Nick doing that, a lot of things you can't say on the air. But you know what I mean? But it was great swapping stories, and yeah, just all the great things that people remembered.
Well, I really loved seeing all the different like generations of people that came out to play, and it really fascinated me. And of course, I know there was probably some concern for some of the athletes that were playing in the game.
Oh, definitely. Well, first of all, we had, I think, so Kevin Barger, he was the oldest guy there that played, but he ended up pitching an inning, and he played. He did a great job. I think it was 1982, 83. I think it was. I think that was when he graduated. Then we had some from the 80s. Ron Blair. I think he was 1990, and he's one of my volunteer coaches still. And a lot of guys, a couple guys my age from the 90s. Yeah, it's just a great thing. And the two guys that I think that really need recognized is Kyle Morrow and Adam Shaver. Those guys, I was worried about if we were having enough catching to do it, because it was so hot, and it's like, putting on that gear is pretty tough as it is. And then to do it when it's 95 degrees out. Both those guys caught 7 innings in that heat. Just amazing. And I kept asking them, I was like, are you guys okay? You sure you don't want somebody else? No, we're good. We're good. So outstanding job by those two guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, I really enjoyed the barehanded play you made at shortstop there, Coach.
Yeah, well, when you're a little older and a little heavier than it used to be, I figured I had to get to it fast, which relatively fast for me anymore. And I thought that was my only shot, so got fortunate the ball ended up in my hand and I made a good throw. Definitely wasn't as hard as I used to throw it, but it made it there.
To say you had a standing ovation after that play would be an understatement.
It's good to know that you still have it. It's kind of nice, to go out there and play a little bit, and for the players that they can see that you can still play. So I think it's always good that they can see that. It's like, maybe this guy does know what he's talking about. Maybe he was okay.
Oh, yeah, there were definitely some scary moments, I will say, during the game.
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, just with how hot it was definitely made it a little bit scary. But I thought everybody did a good job. The guys in the dugout were like, "Hey, it's like, can I sit this one out?" They were talking back and forth. We had lots of water there, so nothing too bad though. We did see George Bilger slide into third. I'm not sure if he was going to intend to do that, but hey, sometimes your instincts kick in.
No, absolutely. And of course, my favorite quote from you after I wrote the story about it, my favorite quote from you was, "Some of us are still sore."
Yeah, definitely. I actually was better than I thought I was going to be on Sunday, and I still hurt a little bit on Monday, but it wasn't. It was better than I thought it was going to be. And I talked to some of the other guys, and they were okay. They said, Sunday they felt okay. Monday was the day that I think everyone was the sorest that played. But overall, I don't think it was too bad.
No, indeed, and let's also mention why you guys were also doing the alumni game. You mentioned about the champ thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really cool to see how much money you guys raised, and it was all for a good cause. It was to help people with medical travel and expenses and stuff.
Yes, champ. It's an amazing program, and it started by one of my good friends, Jeremy Krause. It was just an idea he had, and it's kind of taken off. This is the 11th year. This year it'll be the 11th year for it, and knowing that they're probably going to go over like $1 million given out to families in those 11 years. It's just amazing. Like a small community, we definitely don't have a lot of wealth, but people just give and help each other out. It's amazing for our communities, how special it is, and people don't realize how special people are and how much they donate and give of themselves.
Amen to that. And honestly, I really had a fun time covering that game, and I'm sure you guys had a lot of fun playing it. And I definitely would like to see more games like that happen, and hopefully next time it won't be as hot.
Yeah, they want me to change the date, but it's tough, because we got to wait till baseball season's definitely over, till high school season's over, and you don't really want to run into football because a lot of people are doing stuff with that. So unfortunately, we're kind of pigeonholed into that end of June and July. So, but I'd definitely like to do it again. I had a lot of guys say that, yeah, I'd love to do this again next year. And I even think some guys that were probably on the fence, being, I'd like to do that, but I don't know if I should. I think we'll get some more guys next year. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, one can only hope. But I will say this, Coach. How many seasons now will you be the head coach at Mount Union?
This year coming up will be the 9th as the head coach. It gets a little odd because we had the COVID year that we didn't play. So, this is going to be the 9th year coming up.
Can you believe it's already been 9 seasons already?
I know it is. It's crazy how it goes so fast.
I guess
definitely happens faster than you think.
Indeed, that's life. That's life in general. But
Yes.
I will say though, Coach, I guess my next question is going to be like, for as long as you would like to be the coach here at Mount Union, what do you hope kids take away from you, and what would you like your legacy to be?
The one thing that I always think about is, even in the classroom, as a teacher, I talk to kids about, you are a student athlete, and please remember that what comes first in that is student. You need to be a student first. Winning state championships obviously is great, district championships, being successful, winning games. Obviously it's varsity. You want to win. I mean, that's what you're trying to do, but we want to do it the right way. And I always felt that that's something that, we did, that, Nick did it, we did it the right way. And I've tried to take that and do the same thing. We want to do it the right way. And the one thing I want to take out of that, I want the kids to always take out is, let's be successful in the field, but let's also be successful once you walk out of this school. And whether that be like going to college, which is great. You know what I mean? We have a couple kids this year, they graduated. They're going to college, and they're going to play ball in college, which is great. We also have, in the past, we've had guys join the military, great opportunities there. We have guys that have went, they were in the VOTEC program up at the Huntington County Career and Tech Center. And instead of, they didn't want to go to college. They got apprenticeships, and they're in different trades, and they're absolutely killing it. Probably making more money than I am in their jobs. So I want those players to just, pick something and be successful in it, and when I look back through all the guys that have graduated since I've been there as a coach, I see so many successful guys. Whether, like I said, whether it be college, military, vocational, or just in the workforce, getting a good job and being able to support themselves. So, yeah, like I said, baseball, it's great being successful, but we want to be successful the whole way around.
No, absolutely, especially when it comes to nowadays with even high school kids can get NIL money and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll see that around here, but who knows? 10 years ago, you'd have never thought anything like that would happen. With college, and look at it now. So, who knows what it'll turn into high school? But hopefully, it doesn't turn into all that. Hopefully, it's just you're playing because you love the game, and you're doing it while you're in school and getting an education.
Amen to that. And what do you think is your future plans for Mount Union baseball, Coach?
I mean, we lost 6 seniors this year, so we definitely have some holes to fill. But the one thing I look forward to is that our kids, they start at such an early age. Our minor league, our little league, our teen league programs, they've always taught our kids well. So whenever they come up to this, they're usually ready to go. I think that we'll find some guys that will fill those holes, and it'll be a learning experience. But hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be right there, ready to compete and challenge for another district championship.
Absolutely. And with that being said, Coach, I'd like to thank you for coming on to my show today.
Oh, no problem. It was great to be here.
Yeah, and I hope and pray for you to continue to find continued success. And I would also like to thank all of you for watching, and love you all, and God bless. Be safe, everybody.
Hey, thank you, Josh.